And this is where the skull is.
Esta es la mamá. Este es lo que se ve. Acá está pe, maní, váyase para acá. ¿Ves? Este es el niño. Este es el niño. Maní, ¿no vas ahí? Acá tienes, mamá. Vale, maní, viste. El chiquito.
This is the skull of a Paracas baby.
Ahí está, así es, así ahí están los dientes. Así es.
It's an elongated skull of a baby.
Ese es el niño. Está con su rival.
Take these to a museum and have them put them away? Like a government museum? Or do you rebury them? I think the reburying is the most respectful thing to do. Or should they be studied to find out who they were? I have to actually think about this for a while and let the ideas go around and think what the best answer would be. Or respect for the dead by reburying them. This is the mother and this is the baby. And they were found in the same burial. You can see she has curly hair, or wavy hair, and it's red. And her skull is complete. These are the funerary wrappings. My God, I don't know whether to feel sick or cry by looking at these things, but this is what they are.
No, este no.
So the mother is here. With her red hair. And this is the baby. With, you can see the ornate work on the textile, and that was not done for common people, that was done for royal people. So that's especially important to take note of. This may be the only elongated baby skull known. The museums in Lima might have one or two, but they hide everything in boxes. They don't even bother taking them out to study them. They've got too much stuff anyway. But this is in the Paracas History Museum in Paracas, Peru. And the two, mother and baby, are going on display. So this may be the only known elongated skull baby in any collection, found in the same tomb as her or his red-haired mother here. The ornateness of the textile shows that this was a royal person. And Senor Juan guesses the age at about 1 year. This is a close-up of the baby elongated skull. You can see from the outline that it is not a normal human baby. Still wrapped up because we don't feel comfortable yet about removing the royal burial material. As you can see, the fineness. So he or she is still wrapped until we decide to unwrap her and see what he or she looks like. She does. The thing is, the question is, what do you do? This is a mother, and this is probably her baby, and they were buried together. It was literally all over the world, this phenomenon, especially about 2,000 years ago, but there are skulls that have been found that have been cranially deformed from the area of Iraq that go back at least 30,000 years. But my major focus has been Peru and Bolivia, because this is where I spend almost all of my time, and my more particular focus has been the Paracas area, but also up around Cusco, because a lot of elongated skulls have been found there as well. And so the main thing is it's trying to, it's trying to trace back in time to find the original ones if possible, because they would be the rootstock from which all of the others came from. And it's our strong belief that the cranial deformation was a process in order to replicate the look of someone, because that was the international if you can boil cranial deformation or elongated skulls down in any culture down to three basic points. The first point was that it was believed that it made the children more attractive. Number two, it was believed it made them more intelligent. And number three, that is what the ancestors looked like. And cranial deformation, at least in Peru and Bolivia, was only practiced amongst the royal families. It was not that the entire population was this. It was only a very exclusive genetic bloodline that had this characteristic, whether ceremonial or through natural cause.
Do you believe that they were, again, with possibility here, then out of the Middle East, Iraq area kind of thing, coming out of there, traveling potentially around to different parts of the world, maybe even following a certain route, maybe, of course, not all of them left. They might even have spread globally in that regard. But how do you think that they came from wherever they actually did come from over to the Paracas region, Brian?
Well, that's a great question. And the thing is, even when we were, again, in the director's office of the Museum of Archaeology in Lima a few days ago, they honestly don't know where the Paracas came from, literally. I mean, their civilization rises about 1000 BC. Their artistic abilities, which were really advanced, including, it's quite possible they had the potter's wheel, which no other Native American group that I know of had. All of a sudden they appear in this area. And so it's quite mysterious. And along with the fact that this royal bloodline had auburn red hair, which we've shown is genetically red. It's not dye or sun bleaching or the result of age. And so I'm starting to piece together a global picture of migration patterns, and it's only kind of a gut feeling now, but through conversation with LA, we've noticed there were a lot of elongated skulls in the Middle East and also in the area of Georgia as well. And so I kind of think that we're going to find a bloodline, at least one or more aspects of the bloodline coming from somewhere in the Middle East. And if you study the wind and current patterns of the Pacific Ocean or global oceans in general, then you can see that it is conceivable that ancient people could have sailed from the Middle East through the Pacific to the coast of South America.
Right. Yeah. Now, there's a couple of pictures there, I believe, that actually you can literally see the hair on the skull as well. Is that intact, or is that put on afterwards? Is that the real deal right there?
No, it's intact, because the thing is, the Paracas area is amongst the driest places on Earth. It's actually an extension of what is called the Atacama Desert of Chile. And so Paracas gets less than 1 inch of rain per year, and it's all sandy area, and as well, this area is uplifted ancient ocean. So there's still a lot of salt in the sand itself. So in terms of preservation, it's probably even better than an area like Egypt. So textiles, human skeletal parts are incredibly well preserved, and I've witnessed both in the museum and also in the field, where I go quite often, numerous skulls that have intact, complete hairstyles on them, and they are this beautiful, unique auburn red. It's not like Irish or Scottish red hair. It's a darker, fiery color.
Interesting. When I look at it, it reminds me a little bit about the bog people that have been found primarily Denmark, England, Netherlands. I think a couple of in Sweden as well, where the head is, the hair is preserved rather. You can even see like the Subian knots and the hairstyle and everything else in there. It's really interesting, and a lot of them also have that have a red hair. Now, if it's matching that you're talking about, if it's a richer one, if you will, I don't know if that's a correlation, but we could talk more about that later. But it's nonetheless very interesting. Did you, Eli, when you were down there, did you, hold one of these in your hands? Did you look at them properly? How did you?
Yeah, that's to say we handled them is an understatement. We measured, weighed, handled them, photographed them. We actually had a dentist from Peru come in and take a look at the dentition. We've done casting of these skulls. In fact, right behind me, we have a cast of one of the elongated skulls. I've shown that to many doctors and dentists and forensic anthropologists here. We took a sample of the hair, just a very small sample of the hair, and it had fallen off one particular skull. And what we wanted to do was to find out whether it was dyed or not. So we took it back to the States, and this is where it gets really strange. And there's a machine called Raman spectroscopy, and you can take different objects and put it, and what this machine will do is it will analyze whatever you're putting in it and tell you on a graph, plotted on a graph, what it's sort of made out of, its molecular structure. So what was interesting is we had 4 samples. We had a normal human hair from modernity. We had a normal human hair from present day that was dyed. Okay, so that's 1 and 2. Normal human hair, dyed human hair. We had the Paracas red hair. And then number 4, and this is where we, not in Kansas anymore type of deal, the particular gentleman who was running this is also very involved in the UFO abduction phenomena. And, excuse me, he was given in his possession by a man who had been abducted and forced to have sex with a hybrid being with very white blondish hair. All right?
Right.
So we have 4 hairs. We have the human hair, the dyed human hair, the red hair from Paracas, and this white hair from supposedly some sort of a hybrid being. All of them ran through Raman spectroscopy. The human hair starts about midway up the graph on the left side, does a nice little arc, and then kind of comes down. The dyed human hair starts at about the same place, but the arc is totally different. It shoots up to the very top in a very dramatic, long arc. So they're completely different. The dyed hair is totally different looking on the Raman spectroscopy graph than the normal human hair. But here's where it gets really interesting. And when we saw this, the man who was doing a test fell out of his chair, and when he explained it to us, we promptly fell out of our chairs too. When you take the Raman spectroscopy reading for the Paracas red hair and the so-called whitish hair from the hybrid, female hybrid being, and you plot those on a graph, they basically track almost identically with one another. The slopes are almost the same. You can juxtapose them one upon the other. That's how close they are. And that blew us away because, again, what it does from my particular paradigm, it brings what was happening then, thousands of years ago in antiquity, and all of a sudden there's a leap, a scientific leap into modernity, and there seems to be a relation between the hair from the hybrid being today and present day and the red hair from Paracas. Now look, that's not conclusive, but it's certainly absolutely mind-boggling. And once again, it sort of leads us down the road that there is an outside agency messing with the genome.
Well, that is interesting. That's indeed very interesting. Now, we could talk a little bit about, there might be some difference obviously here in the general outlook of, where they come from, even what the purpose of them were in that regard. But if we switch back to you, Brian, to a certain extent here, do you believe that we're talking about a race that became the king race, if you will, because of their appearance and everything? And then we obviously have a scenario here where, so-called regular Norman humans, they dyed their hair, they shaped their skulls to look like these beings, to kind of be part of that line as well. And who do you think they were? They were like the kings and the royals of that area?
Well, they definitely were the royal family of the area, because the tombs that they've been found in have been have been rich in very incredible ornate tapestries, fine ceramics, etc. And that's typical anywhere in the world where you find royal tombs. You tend to find very nice artifacts, whereas a farmer's grave will tend to have not much in it. So we do know that they were of a royal class. Part of the mystery is that when the Nazca take over the area, which was about 100 AD, all of a sudden the elongated skulls disappear from the archaeological record. They're not really found that much amongst the Nazca tombs. And so it's my beginning of a theory that I think the Nazca, in fact, eradicated the royal family of the Paracas for some reason. But I can't understand why you wouldn't find the Paracas in the archaeological record once the Nazca take over. However, when we look, the thing is that this phenomenon existed all over Peru and also in the area of many parts of Bolivia, including Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, and other sites in Peru where you find megalithic structures. I'm starting to find direct correlations between megalithic building and the presence of elongated skulls.
Well, that's interesting. Do you believe that the Nazca people were threatened to a certain extent? I mean, it's not something new to see people in a close proximity being at a war in the ancient times. This is just how things were. But it might be a potential turf war. They wanted to take over the region. They might even wanted to have controlled some of these, different looking peoples, perhaps.
Well, that's very true. And what we do know from records is that, or not necessarily records, but studies of what the climate was like, is that around 100 AD, the whole coastal area of Peru began to become desert.
Or do you rebury them? I think the reburying is the most respectful thing to do. Or should they be studied to find out who they were? I have to actually think about this for a while and let the ideas go around. And this is the skull of a Paracas baby. It's an elongated skull of a baby. Take these to a museum and have them put them away, like a government museum. It's red, and her skull is complete. These are the funerary wrappings. My God, I don't know whether to feel sick or cry by looking at these things, but this is what they are. Think what the best answer would be. Or respect for the dead by reburying them. This is the mother and this is the baby. And they were found in the same burial. You can see she has curly hair, or wavy hair, and this is where the skull is.
Acá pe, maní, ese para acá. Ve. Este es el niño. Este es el niño. ¿Maní no vas ahí? Acá tienes, ¿no?